Hello and welcome to this week's Politics Today, and in this programme we shall be marking President Trump's 100 days in office and asking how his presidency is shaping up. And in this programme today I'm joined by Eric Casto from Global Reach USA, together with Joshua Bellingham, representing the Conservative Christian Fellowship. So guys, warm welcome to the programme. Eric, great to see you back on the programme. I think you're a resident US expert, so you're over this side of the Atlantic, which is wonderful. So just remind our viewers of the excellent ministry that you represent, which is Global Reach USA, and how you spent Easter weekend carrying a cross around central London.
Well, it's great to be back with you, and it's great to be back in the UK. We've been doing what we call the crosswalk, London crosswalk, for 25 years, and I've been carrying a cross. Different nations of the world, but the UK is kind of the heartbeat of everything that we do, because 25 years ago, it's when I met Prince Charles, and I was missionary, ready to leave, beat up, everything wasn't going right, but then I met Charles, and something happened to me for England, and so for 25 years, we've been coming back, and this was an exceptional Easter weekend in London, and the weather was perfect. Excellent. So it's just great to be back.
And the response of you carrying a cross around Trafalgar Square and that whole central area of central London?
Well, I tell you what, the cross, it gets the attention. So I would estimate we probably walked in crowds of 250,000 people. And our team can't get tracts out to all those people. It's impossible. But the cross speaks. And I remember 25 years ago when I crossed Westminster Bridge for the first time, the presence of the Lord came so strong. I knew the Lord was standing next to me, and he said, "You walk and I'll talk." And so I knew it doesn't matter whether we get a tract to you, I know that the Lord's going to be speaking. And so when we come out into London and just the beautiful people that we meet, I know the Lord is speaking to their hearts concerning his love.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here as well. And Josh, it's great to have you on the programme today, representing the Conservative Christian Fellowship. Remind us about the ministry that you're representing, but also the importance of supporting Christians in Parliament, particularly Christian parliamentarians, and having a Christian voice within the Conservative Party.
Sure, Simon. Well, thanks again for having me back. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm part of the Conservative Christian Fellowship, and it's a group that started actually in the 80s with David Burrows. That's when it was founded. And the real heart behind that was to provide a platform and a place and a way for Christians to gather together and to build critical mass and influence in particularly conservative politics, but parliament generally. And now, in just the last year, it's entering in a new phase, and it's quite exciting. So there's quite a lot of younger people coming into the fellowship, and that's gaining quite a lot of momentum. And I think the time that we're in right now, there's so many tectonic plates shifting across all the parties, especially with the rise of reform, that the need for people who have vision and conviction and the wisdom of God to be involved in politics is only increasing. So we're trying to build bridges basically between church and Christianity and government, and to provide a way for solutions to be brought forward for the critical questions that we have today.
Excellent. And Eric, it's great to have your perspective as an American, because in this program today we're marking President Trump's 100 days in office, which is a milestone. So just please reflect on for us how you think President Trump has done in the past 100 days, which is effectively his kind of second term as a US president.
Well, I tell you, Simon, I think it goes back to the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, where God turned his head. And I would say in the circles that I'm in, we would say that God got his ear. And there's always been a sensitivity to Christianity and to prayer. And for this New York businessman who has global influence, to see what God is doing, I would say from my understanding, what I'm seeing is that the emphasis for Christianity is just as strong or stronger than it ever was in the first presidency. And I just sit back and I think it's only been several months, And it feels like he's been in office now for a long time because of all that they're doing. And I find myself checking the news all the time because every 5 minutes something is happening. And it's to the positive of bringing, especially our nation, back into a strength again, back into a pro-America, which when that happens, it causes other nations to begin to wake up and say, we need to relook at our own. How do we operate? What's going on with us? And I really think COVID was such a devastating blow to nations that I believe that God put Trump into office kind of like a shock to get nations to begin to come back alive again, to look at what they've been operating, how they've been operating, what's going on. And so you're seeing this, it's like the paddles being put to the globe, and there's a global shock. So I am thrilled by what I see, very encouraged, and so, yeah.
Absolutely. And Josh, I think these past 100 days have definitely not been boring. I mean, as Eric was saying, there's always new announcements. And apparently, according to the press release that was announced on the White House website, that President Trump has said that he's passed more executive orders than Franklin Roosevelt, and that was back in the 30s, where he signed 30 executive orders. Share with us your thoughts on President Trump's first 100 days in office as US president.
Yeah, well, it's, like you say, it's been a pretty transformative. I think when we look at it from this angle, or this side of the pond, it's quite interesting to see the shift in perspective as well. I think in the UK, the opinion about Trump has shifted quite significantly, and people are starting to see actually there's some things here, we might not agree with everything, but there's something interesting about what he's doing, and as it was just mentioned, waking up countries in Europe, especially I think the UK, to the reality that we can't just stay doing the same thing forever. And I think that's a great, what we see with Trump, and even with the Doge, as an example, that the bureaucracy, the institutions, they can't stay the same, and there has to, even if it costs a lot, even if it has a big impact, things have to shift. I think that's what we've seen a lot in the last 100 days, a kind of a moving of the boundary.
Excellent. So I just want to read this, if I can, to you, Eric, and to our viewers. So this was at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. back on the 6th of February this year, where President Trump stated the following. He said, "God has a glorious mission for America. We have to make religion a more important factor now." At a second event, the president announced the creation of an anti-Christian bias task force to be chaired by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Mr. Trump also said that God saved him last summer, and that his relationship with religion has changed when a gunman began shooting at a campaign event. A bullet grazed Mr. Trump's ear before his rush off stage. Share with us the kind of impact that President Trump has had on Christian freedoms in the US.
Well, yeah, like I said, the first term of President Trump was prayer meetings were happening all the time at the White House, and so he was very pro prayer. In fact, he would stop meetings and go into the room with the pastors and ask them, "Please lay hands on me and pray for me." That's a side that most news outlets aren't going to talk about. So he has a very soft heart towards Christianity, and probably more, he's talking more about God and more about Jesus Christ. And if you listen to his Easter message, you're like, hey, that's pretty good preaching. And so it's amazing to see someone in such a high, powerful position begin to swing the pendulum back towards a pro-Judeo-Christian value, and emphasizing the nation has to turn back this way because this is where our roots are. And if a nation loses its roots, such as the UK, what happens? You begin to drift and dissolve, and you lose. And so with Trump, I mean, like I said, he's shocking the nations, but I think when you listen to him, he really is not the bully that they're trying to portray. He's for all nations, but particularly the United States, because if we fail, then what happens to the rest of the world? So we have to rescue our nation first, and Christianity is at the root of our benevolence and our goodness. So I'm just happy.
Excellent. That's really good. And Josh, share with us the impact already that the Trump administration is having on this country, particularly with J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, actually linking freedom of speech and the protection of Christians who have the right to protest, who have faced legal prosecutions because they've come against the state. And here we have a vice president that's actually speaking up for them. So share with us the impact that the Trump presidency is having on domestic UK policy, particularly when it comes to freedom of religion and freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, which are core values within our democracy.
Yeah, absolutely, they totally are. I think when we take a step back and look at what's happening, and in terms of the history of the special relationship, it's a historic moment, a significant shift in how things have been done. So even in past years, there's a strong connection between American influence and British policy, but we've never seen this type of engagement where the economic side, the economic influence is leveraged to have an impact on the social policy, the freedoms, domestically. And what we're seeing with Vance, I think, illustrates that so well. And on the point of religious freedom specifically, that's at the core of what we're talking about, the Judeo-Christian foundation of civilization, and particularly Britain, is freedom of worship. And what I really think is fascinating is that with the State Department actively pointing out what's going on in the UK, that is actually opening up the conversation in a way that's never happened before. We've been seeing Christians being persecuted, arrested, and just recently we've been seeing that for years, and just recently there was this case of a lady outside an abortion clinic who was simply inviting people with a sign to have a consensual conversation. And the State Department was actively following this recently, and I think they'll continue to do so. But that seems to exemplify the state that we've got to in this country. But it's really great that this topic has now left the silos of our own domestic politics and has now a light has been shone on it in a new way. And I think that's a great benefit to what's going on right now.
Excellent. And Eric, share with your thoughts on the challenges that Trump has faced, particularly to ground America back in its Judeo-Christian heritage and really confront the extreme liberal progressive agenda, which was so toxic and so anti-Christian, essentially antichrist, I would say,
Sure.
that was being pursued fanatically by the Biden and Harris administration, the Democrats, during their presidency.
I think where you fall back to is the election. All the people that voted for Trump, they were tired of what was being forced down their throats. And so the media hasn't really changed. So the media would try to get you to think that we're the dominating view, but they're not. They're actually losing credibility. The majority of Americans were tired of the direction, the agenda. And so, yes, it's an uphill battle. But what we're seeing with this presidency is he's brought a team around him. He's learned from his first presidency. Now he's got a team that's loyal to him. And if you listen to their like the secretaries gathering together, they all talk about we're friends. We're like a family unit, and they start with prayer. And I mean, I don't know what it's like to see around the world the President of the United States and his cabinet all bowing their heads and praying that God, the Christian God, would bless them and give them wisdom. I mean, these are amazing days that we're living in, Simon. And of course, as Christians, even in the UK, which really we're family, the United States and our relatives in the UK, I mean, I know sometimes there can be a little bit of some friction, but we're really linked together. And my prayer is that for this nation, is that it's going to have a blessed effect over here to kind of wake the nation back up to its roots and to see kind of that turn. Yeah, it's a battle, but you're seeing progress because they're cleaning out the areas that have been strongholds. But it takes prayer. And so Christians in the UK, Christians in America, you can't stop praying. It's only going to be done by prayer. And we need each other. The UK and America
Absolutely.
need each other.
Yeah, it's a special relationship. We were able to push back Imperial Germany during the First World War, kick the Nazis into touch, and then confront the Soviets as well. And that only happened because the strength of our alliance, which is based on our Judeo-Christian heritage, which is the foundation from that is the Bible and the Ten Commandments. So that's our joint heritage, and this is why the Lord's allowed our two nations to be at the fore of protecting the world and confronting evil. On that note, Joshua, do you actually think that there is a direct correlation between the announcement by the Supreme Court protecting women's rights against trans rights, and this has happened because of J.D. Vance and also the President Trump really doing everything he can to protect women's rights?
Yeah, so I would say there's an indirect connection, but a very close connection. Looking at it, what we're seeing is, and as what we've been talking about, a shift in atmosphere. We're seeing global changes in policy, in the relationships between nations, and how people look at issues. And I think what we've seen, what we've seen with the U.S. directly addressing some of these core institutional problems, that's probably supercharged the people who do feel discontent about that and have frustrations. And so with that case particularly, it was really initiated and catalyzed by 3 frustrated feminists in Scotland, and that they didn't really have very much, but they just thought, okay, we've got to do something about this. But I think the atmosphere that's been created by that is enabling these things to happen. And I think that there is a really close connection.
Yeah, good point. Eric, share with us your thoughts on President Trump's economic policy, particularly these new trade wars and these tariffs that he's in placing, which is really causing the nations around the world to reel as they feel the full impact of the trade tariffs on their economy and on their businesses.
I think, when you look at it, and am I an economist? No. But when you look at it and go, okay, I have an open mind, you look at the trade imbalance. So a lot of times when the media talks about Trump's tariffs, they decline to talk about the tariffs that are placed on American products. So there's a trade imbalance of which the United States is always at the bottom. So you look at the United States economy, you look at our debt, which is terrible. You look at manufacturing going out of the country. Our nation is in a terrible situation moving forward into the world that we live in. China's on the rise. China is a threat, the main threat. And so you get someone like Trump coming in, and he looks at the whole picture as a businessman and decides, okay, we got to work this out. We can't have a trade imbalance with Canada. Can't do that. We cover them militarily. Which is a subsidy from the American taxpayer. They have higher tariffs on our goods than our goods coming to Canada. And so we need to renegotiate the whole thing. And the thing that I see about Trump is he's going to hit you with the bully to get your attention. But when you come humbly and you work with him, he says it very clearly. We want what's good for you too, but it's got to be what's right for America. So that's the door that he'll open as the key negotiator for American economics. And the media tries to make him out to be an idiot, but he's no idiot. He's usually 5 miles down the road, further than you, thinking. and he's working a plan. So we pray for him. And but if America goes down financially, a lot of nations will suffer. And you have to make a strong America, as an American view, to help other nations. And that's the heartbeat of the American. I mean, when you look at what he's doing with the immigration, there's a lot of compassion being offered to companies to just reveal your people. If they're illegal, we'll work with you, but just tell us and we'll work with you. So it's not a hard line like they try to make it sound. There's a lot of compassion being offered, but you've got to have someone who's in charge. And when he walks in the room, he's in charge. So, you know, we just pray for him.
Absolutely. And Josh, in terms of foreign policy, what do you make of President Trump? I mean, he's literally shaking up the world. You know, he's threatening to annex Canada. He wants to annex now Greenland. He's also caused European nations to invest more money and GDP investment in defense. He wants a peace deal cut between Ukraine and Russia. He's literally has undermined NATO. Of course, he's also negotiating to get the Israeli hostages released and ending the war in Gaza. Now he's negotiating Iran's nuclear weapons program. Just share with us your thoughts on President Trump's first 100 days in office in terms of his foreign policy.
Yeah, like you say, it's been pretty tectonic, lots of things changing. And I think when we look at it for what it's worth, how would you put it? I think what's been said already is a really good point, that his tactic and his strategy in foreign policy is really go with the bully first and try to get a lot more than is actually possible. So he's set out in his first 100 days, he set out a very ambitious foreign policy. Some of the things are going to work, some of them aren't going to work, but I don't think he's too worried about that. The things he's aiming for are things that nobody has aimed for before. For example, Iran is a really good example. The past two administrations have just been letting it coast. They haven't been doing anything really significant to address that. And that is a significant security threat to the Middle East. So the fact that in the first 100 days, he's taking the initiative to initiate those conversations is really good. I think he's having some trouble with the Ukrainian side of things, the Ukraine war. But if he keeps up the perseverance, I think we'll see some interesting progression in that area.
And Eric, in terms of foreign policy, what is so important is God's foreign policy, and that depends whether President Trump blesses or curses Israel. But share with us your thoughts how the Israeli Prime Minister has been invited twice into the Oval Office for meetings with President Trump. And of course now Mike Huckabee, the former Republican senator for Arkansas, is now America's ambassador to Israel, and he's an evangelical born-again Christian as well. So share with us how important this is in God's eyes, this special relationship between the United States and Israel, and the relationship between the two nations.
I think the appointing of Mike Huckabee to represent the United States says a lot, because being a very Judeo-Christian believer, Mike Huckabee, but also so pro-Israel, I think it really shows you where the heart of President Trump is. And I think, you know, when I listen to different views about his Israeli, policy, I think we're going to just say, we're just going to see where it goes here. We just have to do a lot of praying, because I feel good about it. Netanyahu's come twice. That's probably more than any other leader.
It is.
He's very open to meet with him, a lot of conversation. And as soon as Donald Trump was elected, a whole lot of military hardware was being shipped right back into Israel, just to reinforce we're getting the hostages back and we're going to end this terrible war. So, you know, it's, I think it requires a lot of prayer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A lot of prayer.
And yeah, Josh, share with us, as we mentioned earlier in the program, how God has a special plan for both Great Britain and the United States. and how the Lord has used our two nations so powerfully to push back with the rise of evil. And bring order, peace and stability to the world. So share with us your thoughts on, is Trump confronting evil, whether it's President Putin in Russia, whether it's Xi Jinping in China, whether it's Islamic Republic of Iran or Hamas or South Korea. Share with us your thoughts on how he's tackling the big totalitarian regimes in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you were saying, the genesis of this special relationship is actually at the root of it. And with Trump right now, I think he's using his opportunity and his power, and he's using it responsibly in a way that no other administration has done in recent years. So I think that's a fantastic thing. But as you've mentioned, requires a lot of prayer.
Absolutely. And Eric, our viewers watching this program today, as we mark the approaching 100 days since President Trump was inaugurated as America's president again, share with us how we can pray for him and how we can support this administration, because clearly what he's wanting to do is pull the United States out of the globalist institutions, the globalist orders, and put America back on that Judeo-Christian foundation that made America great and made America that great power of influence, both economically, spiritually, politically, and militarily.
Well, here's the thing. He's a man. All governments are made up of people, and there's a lot of pressure that comes from the things that are happening in the world. A lot of pressure spiritual, and that's where the church often misses it, is that in Timothy, Paul says, you pray for the king, you pray for the leadership. The ultimate reality of praying for leaders is that peace would be on the land, so that, why? People can hear the gospel. So churches that abdicate this wonderful command will suffer because of abdication. And so we're commanded to be praying. But you know, the special relationship between Britain and the United States, I think, is culminated in Winston Churchill.
Wonderful.
Both American and British.
Excellent. It's great, Josh, and also Eric, to join me on this week's Politics Day. Done a great job. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you for watching this program at home as we mark President Trump's 100 days in office as US President again. It's vital that we pray for him, we pray for his administration, but we welcome his embrace of defending Christian values and democracy. So thank you for watching this week's Politics Today.